It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call shots. Todd, the Cloverfield Paradox. That's what I got for an intro.
What an incredible opening. What an incredible opening. That is the high energy Seth Sturgill that God damn it.
Todd, it's hard. It's hard to bring life to this show each and every week for our legion of fans. And you know what? Every now and then I need to bring the same energy that some of the actors in the Cloverfield Paradox brought to their expository dialogue. Why don't you... so I'm trying to debate on how we should tackle this. So I guess let's just talk about what this is. And I think the interesting thing about this is sort of the way that this movie was released. So for those who are living under a rock, the Cloverfield Paradox was announced and released during the Super Bowl this year. It was a Super Bowl ad that Netflix ran that said hey, new Cloverfield movie. It's out on Netflix right now. You can go watch it. So, that's sort of cool and interesting and unprecedented and blah, blah, blah. What the Cloverfield Paradox is, it is the third installment in the Cloverfield, I guess, anthology series, because that's sort of what these movies have become now. Almost like a Twilight Zone, Black Mirror sort of thing, where each movie is not necessarily connected, although this one kind of has more connections than any of the others. Kind of in different genres and different styles of filmmaking, and the Cloverfield Paradox is the latest entry. How would you describe what kind of movie the Cloverfield Paradox is, though?
It's just kind of a standard sci-fi movie at this point. This one, at least.
Yeah, it's sort of kind of in the vein of a psychological, I guess, almost sci-fi movie, though.
Yeah.
Almost like a alien sort of vibe a little bit. There are certain things about it that gave us heavy vibes from that we'll get into as we move into spoilers. But what's your sort of spoiler-free take on this?
It's the weakest of the movies, but it's not. It's a movie that doesn't deserve the amount of hate that it's gotten. It's a fine movie. It is a watchable movie, and it is does it have its problems? Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily deserve a 16% Rotten Tomatoes score. Because that's what it's sitting at right now.
Dear Lord. Is that really what it's at right now?
That's where it's sitting right now.
It doesn't deserve that. It's not that bad.
It's not. That's sort of my general feeling. I, first of all, really, really love Cloverfield. The first Cloverfield is just the hype leading up to the first Cloverfield was immense, dude. I'll never forget that. Because I was invested in the Cloverfield universe literally from the beginning, back when it didn't even have a title. It used to just be called 11808. That was an interesting thing. Cloverfield, the original, didn't even have a title until it released. It was just known as 11808 because that was the release date. And, over 10 years ago now. And and it had that one trailer, man, where it just you knew it was going to be a monster movie, but there were all these oh, is this going to be a found footage Godzilla movie? Is it this? Is it that? There are all these theories, and I was so fucking deep into the ARG online and shit like that, and dude, I was up the first Cloverfield movie's ass when it came out, up its ass, and I can't even describe to you the feeling of going to the theater the day it was released. I saw it the earliest possible time, and it met and exceeded all of my expectations. I love the first Cloverfield, and I think a lot of people look back on it not as fondly, and kind of like forgetting how crazy that whole experience was. But I won't. I never forget how crazy that whole the build up to it, and then like the satisfaction of finally seeing it, and like all of that together. I mean, like I would put the first Cloverfield in my top like 25 favorite movies of all time. Like I just really really love that movie. I introduced you to it recently.
Yep.
Kind of brought you into this whole Cloverfield fold, just within the past few months.
Yeah, because I think like was Cloverfield Lane or
Yeah.
whatever. Got put on like Hulu, and we watched that. And I think I mentioned I was like I never saw the first one.
Yeah, changed that.
Yep, real quick. I think we watched the Cloverfield like the day after.
Yeah,
basically.
that sounds right. Yeah, but I just really really love these movies, and you know, like I love, like I said, I love the first Cloverfield. I really loved 10 Cloverfield Lane as well, and I kind of love the idea. I love the anthology sort of take on it, where it's like these, you know, they have similar tone and stuff like that, and there are some connecting threads for like the super fan idiots like me who can find them, but they're not. You know, they're not like directly related to each other. They feel separate but still connected in interesting ways, and I love that. I really like that a lot. And you know, coming into this, you know, kind of hearing that there's a new Cloverfield movie, and it was announced on the Super Bowl, and it's fucking like on Netflix. Like that's fucking weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, and then like to turn around, it was just such a weird confluence of events where it's like, okay, learning of this thing's existence and then hearing people shit on it the way that people have been. You know what I mean? And then like, you know, I knew I was going to watch it myself because I'm just so invested in the franchise, and you and I kind of already knew we were going to watch it and do a shots on it and stuff like that. And so we come into this, and I'm going to be real with you. The first like 10 minutes of the movie had me worried. Because like
Yeah,
it's got,
Yeah.
I made a little jab at it at the beginning, but it's got some really bad, this entire movie really has really bad dialogue.
I think that's the major problem with the movie. But yeah,
I think the movie is not very well written, and I think that some of the performances fall kind of flat, but overall that's really where my negatives end. A common complaint that I saw people lodging against this movie that I didn't really understand is people were like, oh, you can really see that Netflix budget. It's really, you can kind of tell it's not a AAA blockbuster or whatever. I'm like, I thought everything looked good.
yeah, I didn't see any like issues
Nothing looked
like that.
Yeah, nothing looked cheap to me. It looked pretty high budget to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just an idiot. But, you know, and it's got like the plot is interesting. Well, the plot is like pretty threadbare, but I'll say this: it's interesting enough to where it keeps you guessing. And what I really enjoyed about it, try to watch this with another person if you can, because Todd and I watched this together, and I really liked that experience of like kind of like figuring it out together. You know?
Yeah, that was honestly my favorite part of watching it.
Yeah, it was nice to just like watch it with you and just sort of like pick up the puzzle pieces and kind of like slowly be like, oh, okay, this is what's going on, you know, and sort of figuring out what's going on at the same time, and bouncing ideas off of each other, because the movie does a good job of like, I'll be interested to see how this holds up to like repeated viewings, because I'm wondering, it doesn't have like a huge twist or anything like that, but once you come into it kind of knowing what's going on, I'm wondering how well the rest of it holds up. For the first viewing, at least, we've only seen the movie once. I would say that it handles itself very well, and it does a good job of, you know, it's just a good science fiction movie. It's just a good space movie in space. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think you have to be world-shatteringly good. You know, I think you can be a solid, you know, 7 out of 10 sci-fi movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
This movie's not gonna fucking win any awards, but I don't think it has to. You know, like, I think it's okay. Yeah, like you said, it's the weakest of the three, but it's still a damn good movie. You know what I mean? And I think the problem is I think people came into this movie with way too high expectations based on the unique way in which it was released. And I think people expected more out of it because the first and second entries in the series were like so fucking good. You know, like I would give the first Cloverfield 10 out of 10. I would give Cloverfield Lane like a 9 out of 10. Like, and this,
Yeah.
like I said, is probably like a 7. You know what I mean? Which, and that's fine. That's still good, you know. But yeah, that's sort of my generalized thoughts. It's good. I think it's worth watching. I think it's way better. We saw Jumanji last week, my family and I, and I'm like, how does Jumanji have like almost an 80% Rotten Tomatoes score, and the Cloverfield Paradox has a 16%? You know what
That's
I mean?
some real shit. Like, a part of me still wants to. I haven't seen Jumanji, but I do want to see it. Like,
Ugh.
I just want to see Jack Black, but that's about it. Other
It's
than that, I know that movie's shit.
it's not
I know.
shit.
I know it. I know in my heart that it's shit.
It's not shit. This is not the Jumanji shot, so I'm not going to go
I
into
know,
it. But
it's
it's but
It's weird.
but it's not great. You know, they're very different movies, but seeing those movies like in such close proximity, that was all I could think about. I was like, how the fuck does like Jumanji have such a good Rotten Tomatoes score, and then this, you know, just goes to show how flawed that system is in general. Like, because really it's just based on the aggregate is just based on the reviewers. Did you like this movie? Yes or no? You know what I mean? So even if somebody fell on the fence of like with the Cloverfield Paradox, even if somebody was like, ish, then it's still going to count as a no, and it's still going to go towards the aggregate, and you wind up with a fucking 16%, you know, rotten score. And I'm just like, that really sucks. You know what I mean?
That's why, honestly, for the most part, I don't really pay attention to the review sites like that, man. I'd rather form my own opinion on a movie.
Yeah, there are a few movie reviewers that I do sort of follow, and I sort of I do kind of like feel like my taste. I really like What the Flick a lot. It's a YouTube channel, a movie review YouTube channel, and I find that my tastes align with theirs pretty regularly. And you know, even they, and they're all professional, you know, high caliber, I guess, critics. Even they were kind of pooping on a little bit, but I just like you said, I think at the end of the day, you just have to watch the thing and form your own opinion. And in my opinion, this movie's good. This movie's worth your time. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. It does have some good performances. I kept making the comments that you know, the lead actress Gugu Mbatha-Raw, I think is how you pronounce her name. I was like, she's doing the best she can.
Yeah, she was carrying that movie with what she can do.
She's doing the best she can with the style, and God bless her. You know what I mean? With this fucking script, she's doing the best she can. I think the movie is very flawed, but it's still good. That's my kind of, you know, I think we've done a good job of talking about it in a spoiler-free context. So, full spoiler warning, we are now going to get into spoiler territory. So if you've not seen the movie, go see it, come back, and listen to the rest of this. So the comparisons to I mentioned earlier, the comparisons to like the Alien movies and that sort of like take on science fiction, where it's basically just like, you know, crazy shit happening in a very contained space. You know what I mean? That's what I think this movie does really, really well. Although I think it takes, you know, it does heavily take inspiration from other movies of its genre. I think it still does it pretty well overall. Like, we were talking about, it has the chest burster scene, essentially. You know what I mean?
I called that shit too.
Yeah, with the worms.
I called that shit. Yeah.
just like, oh, all right, I guess it's gonna be the worms, you know. And shit just gets kind of progressively crazier as the movie progresses, like with the whole you know, because the plot of the movie is that like the, you know, Earth is out of power and they need to kind of go up into space and fire, essentially, which is like the Hadron Collider or Hadron or whatever collider or whatever, to
it's like a
try to form like the energy producing particle, right? Essentially.
mm-hmm.
And in this movie, it's called Shepard, and the station is called Cloverfield Station, and you know, they're eventually successful, but they've ripped, you know, they've ripped sort of the fabric of time and space, and there's like these different dimensions and different parallel universes
Mm-hmm.
that are taking place, alongside each other. And I thought that was interesting. I thought that idea was handled actually kind of deftly. There's some weird shit. There's the shit with like Mundy's arm. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that I don't understand how that would be a thing, but it was like, all right, it's whatever.
like
Um,
I understood mechanically. I understood how it like happened, but I don't understand
yeah,
how the hand or the arm would be like sentient. You know,
yeah, it still was like sentient, and it was like drawing like shit. It was like, all right, cool.
unless like the only I guess ideology behind it would be maybe like it like that arm was from an alternate parallel universe version of Mundy who was controlling it or something like that. I don't know, but that didn't make a whole lot of sense. It was cool. It was cool, like from a visual standpoint, stuff like that. I'll say this: there were some really, I think, inspired decisions in the movie. The scene where because the whole idea is that once they kind of ripped the fabric of space and time, the two universes were kind of trying to coexist in the same place, and it wasn't really working. So you were getting bits and pieces from each
Mm.
universe kind of overlapping each other. So there's that scene where I forget her name. I think her name was like Tam or Tram or something like that. The engineer, the Chinese woman, right?
Yeah, her name was Tam, I think.
Tam, yeah. So she goes into this like airlock, and it comes to be that like the bit of the Cloverfield station that actually in one universe crashed into the ocean has
Mm-hmm.
sort of popped in, and it begins to fill with water. And it's like it's one of those things where, and we were even talking like as this is happening, it's like, dude, what are they gonna do? They can't open the airlock and let her out.
Mm-hmm.
The water ain't gonna stop. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
because it's from the ocean.
It's from the fucking ocean. It's not going to stop. She's dead. Like, they can't do anything for her. And then I really respected it because, the water pressure builds and builds and it ends up popping out of the back of the space station. And what happens, just like it would, she just instantly freezes and dies,
Yep.
just like it would in real space, and that was cool. Visually, I think that was one of those things where I was like, I don't know if I've ever really seen that in a movie before. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if I've seen that sort of situation represented in quite that way, you know. And, another thing that I really enjoyed about the movie was the, I guess, villain, if there is one, if you could call it the villain.
I, I can't even really. I mean, she is technically the villain, but I don't really think she is a villain.
No,
You
because
know?
like a good villain, you do sort of like you relate to her and you understand her motivations, But I liked that. I liked that whole turn where it was like you could sort of see where she was coming from, and you could just the way, I don't know that actress's name, but just the way she fucking like she wears it on her face. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like this movie has actually a really good cast for the most part, and I think really good performances in spite of how stupid some of it all is.
Yeah.
That actress just wore that like kind of that conflict on her face, where like you fucking knew she was gonna like do some shit,
Oh yeah. You were even saying like when she first popped in,
Yeah.
like if this movie doesn't make her the villain, it's dumb.
Yeah,
Basically.
I was like, if there is a god in this world, this movie will make her the villain. What I really wanted, and I was saying this at the very beginning, I would have loved it if like if the whole parallel universe thing still happened, because the whole what ends up happening is they fire the shepherd, and it turns out they look outside and they're like, oh shit, the Earth is gone. Like as far as they know it, they just made the Earth disappear, which is
Yeah.
which is like the whole reason they're fucking up there. You know what I mean? Like, so they've just kind of not only did they destroy their home and everything they know and love, but they also got rid of their purpose. So in my mind, I was like, oh my god, it would be so amazing if all of these events were just these people going fucking crazy, you know? Just up in space, thinking that they fucked the planet Earth over and just going nuts. And like, yeah, there wasn't a real Mundy's arm or any of this other shit. They were just crazy and killing each other. And all that shit was just in their heads. That would have been amazing. And then you get that last shot of the movie where after they've all fucking like killed each other, the last shot is, oh, by the way, like the Earth wasn't gone. You're just in another universe where the Earth is behind the sun, which is what they wound up going with anyway.
Yep.
That would have been so. That's Twilight Zone as hell. I think the issue is like that you can't. That would be a short film. That would not be an hour and a half long movie.
Yeah.
But that would have been amazing. That was like my whole thought. I was like, God, the balls on this movie. If they just made this just a series of unfortunate events with some crazy motherfuckers in a space station. But I think all things considered, they tapped into that a little bit with that character, though, right? Where it's like, you know, she has her motivations, and she's like, I'm gonna have to kill you guys and escape. Like, in her mind, she's like, I'm killing 3 to save 8 billion. You know. How did you feel about? I feel like I'm talking too much. How did you feel about the whole bullshit with the main characters, like kids and stuff?
All right. I mean, I understand they had to give her like some sort of like conflict in the movie, and that was her biggest conflict towards the end of the movie, of like staying in this parallel universe, because we didn't talk about this. In her universe, the main character lost her kids
Right.
to a house fire that was technically her fault because she was siphoning power
Right.
with a power cell. And in the other universe, that character is technically, she never was on the Shepherd. She was on Earth,
Right.
and because she was it was like civilian coordinator.
Yeah,
or some
she's
shit.
she was like, I think from what I gathered, I think she was kind of the person, you know how like even in real NASA does this, where they have somebody who kind of meets them halfway in space to kind of resupply them and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think that's basically what she was.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And so her whole conflict towards the end of the movie was actually staying in the parallel universe versus going back.
Yeah, because in this one, her kids are alive.
I think they even touched on it, like the very stereotypical commander of the station. I forget his name.
Yeah, who knows?
But he even said, like, that's not your family.
Right.
That's the other you is there.
Right. That's
like,
her family. Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. I don't know. I liked that, I guess, as a driving force for.
I mean, you even said it like there was a shot towards the end of the movie where you even said you loved the symbolism of it.
Yes.
Is because the villain of the movie basically started playing a video of the main character. Well, it's the parallel main character and her kids on basically a window. I don't know why they decided to play.
Well, the whole
windows in this.
I'll tell you why. The entire reason that exists, the entire reason that they
was for the shot.
Was for that symbolism, exactly. That's exactly why they did it. Yeah, and basically she has her she essentially what she does is like cracks the window, and basically fires her out the window of the, you know, because she's trying to play up the whole like, oh, your family and shit like this. And it's playing on the screen that she ends up having to shoot out to, you know, take care of this villain or whatever. So I thought the symbolism of that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff like that in here.
Oh, that's the thing. Like, the movie does certain things, like, really, really well.
I think this movie is a lot of, like, it's an interesting idea with some bad dialogue, some really good performances, some bad performances, some really brilliant ideas, some things that are kind of like a little too reminiscent of other movies. It's like a hot and cold kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a mishmash of certain things that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't.
Pretty much.
But
yeah. But I do want to talk for a second before we wrap this up. I do want to talk about some of the connections that this has to the larger Cloverfield universe. So at the very end, there's the obvious one where it's like, you know, it's sort of, and this is something that I don't know that I like about the movie, because this movie does directly tie into even Cloverfield 1, where, I like that it explains like, hey, like this sort of is the catalyst. It's the earliest movie. It's sort of this event is sort of the catalyst of all of these other happenings with all these monsters and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that. I didn't really like how they decided to flat out show Clover, the monster from the first Cloverfield, at the end.
Yeah, I don't think they needed to do that.
That was
personally.
totally fucking unnecessary. It was totally fine. And I liked it how she was coming down in the escape pod at the end after she takes care of the villain and blah blah blah, and she's back in her universe and stuff. And the husband on the phone is like, wait a minute, no, she's safer up there. Does she know what the fuck is going on down here?
That scene was all that was needed. Honestly,
that's it.
Just him just going, no, don't fucking send her down here. What the fuck are you doing?
Yes, that's all that was needed. That is it. They didn't need to literally show the monster's head above the. And by the way, that monster, and people have been bitching about this, griping about this. He's not that big. He's not big enough to peer his head through the fucking atmosphere. And
no, hell no.
So the idea is that like, oh, maybe this takes place after they do the nuclear bomb at the end of the first Cloverfield.
Well, here's the thing. I actually want to talk about this. This movie takes place in like 2048.
Right.
Cloverfield Paradox.
Does it really?
The original, yes.
I didn't know that.
Cloverfield Paradox takes place further in the future, 2048. I think I read.
Right. Okay.
And then so what Cloverfield is, well, the original Cloverfield, that takes place basically around the time that movie was made.
Yes.
So now the whole thing with the like I was thinking about this to myself for some fucking reason, is basically when the Shepherd activated, it kind of like ripped through a bunch of bullshit, even going into 2008.
Right.
With that.
So that makes sense, but then why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't they know about it? You know what I mean? So here's okay. So I guess
it's a weird thing because it's like that's the thing. It'd be like a different, like that's another universe,
right? So in this universe,
playing with dimensions and universes and shit, multiverse and all that crap.
Essentially, the idea being that in this universe there was no Cloverfield incident until 2048.
Exactly.
But in the other universe in which the first movie takes place, it happened in 2008. Because
the other dimension caused it.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense.
It doesn't make sense, but
okay. Well, I mean, and that's interesting. Like, I like all of that. I'm fine with all of that. I don't think they needed to literally show the monster, and even if it's not the same monster,
not at all.
But I am fine with all that. There are some kind of like far-reaching connections though. So okay. So, Donald Logue, I think is his name. The guy that plays fucking Bullock on Gotham makes a little cameo appearance in this. He plays a character. Yeah. I don't remember the character's name, but it has come to light that character is actually the brother of John Goodman's character in 10 Cloverfield Lane. They have
really,
yeah, they have the same last name, and John Goodman has like a book by that character or something like that. He's like a conspiracy theorist kind of character, and so apparently it runs in the fucking family. That character, and maybe this is again, it goes back to alternate universes. Maybe John Goodman's character is like not existent in this universe, whatever. But those characters have the same last name, and the reporter. That is I forget her name too, but she actually, and she's played by the same actress, so it's like non-refutable. She is the woman that in the universe in which 10 Cloverfield Lane takes place, she's the woman that like comes up to the door and like starts rotting away and shit like that. Mm-hmm. That's the same actress, same character name, everything. But in the universe that 10 Cloverfield Lane, exists in, she's like somebody completely different. So literally the same people are existing in different spots in different universes, which is interesting, And there are several other little connections here and there, like the company that
it's not 2048. I wanted to make sure. I'm going to correct myself now. It's 2028.
Okay. Still though.
Either way.
That's still 20 years on from the events of the first Cloverfield movie. So, interesting stuff. I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm glad that this movie sort of provided the catalyst for the events of this anthology, but at the same time, I'm almost a little bit like, Like, did you need to though? Like, I was kind of okay with it being what it was. You know?
I don't know if we need the like interconnection between these series.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because it's like a half measure, right? It's like you have
Mm,
these little links, but then at the same time, these are all different dimensions. So it's like, why do the links matter at all? You know?
yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like, it literally doesn't matter. If you're trying to like, if you're trying to get my dick hard by showing me Clover at the end of this, like, that doesn't really work because that's not even the same Clover. We just established that. This is 20 years on. Like, none of that shit even happened in this universe. So, like, how are you, you know what I mean? Like, you can't, you can't just, like, pop in and show me something like that and expect me to get excited when, if you think about it for more than 2 minutes, you know what I mean? You realize it's not even the same thing that you're supposed to be excited about.
Yep.
But I think they've done this whole thing. I think they've basically used this movie's narrative to sort of like kind of work as a catch-all because they can literally do whatever the fuck they want. You know what I mean? Like, the alternate dimension setup literally allows them to do whatever they want
Oh yeah.
with Cloverfield.
They can do whatever the fuck they want because I think there's gonna be a fourth one.
Oh yeah, the Cloverfield is not stopping. In fact, there's rumors, and it's funny because there were rumors. You know, this movie sort of started. It's interesting because 10 Cloverfield Lane actually was similar. Started off as a completely separate movie outside of the Cloverfield universe, and then was picked up by Bad Robot and turned into a Cloverfield movie, essentially. Which is interesting. I like that because it sort of does work with the whole anthology thing. It seems like Bad Robot, J.J. Abrams' company, sort of like picks out these like spec scripts and like stuff that's happening and is like, hey, I think this might work. Let's make it a Cloverfield movie type shit. I don't know. It's interesting. The Cloverfield film series is really interesting. Now, I do think that people, you know, now that the public perception of the Cloverfield Paradox is, even though you and I both like it, the public perception is this movie is bad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because of all of the negative buzz and because of the Rotten Tomatoes score and shit like that. Like, people think this movie is bad. And it's not bad. You and I both like it, but that's the perception. So I'm worried that when they do another Cloverfield movie, I'm worried that people are going to be like, oh, is this one going to be bad? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm worried that, like, shit like that, and I talked about this when we talked about, like, Justice League. I'm worried that public perception is going to ruin a good thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the last thing I got to say about it. I really hope that people continue to support Cloverfield because I really like the Cloverfield series a lot. Anyway,
Same, man. Like shit, you got me into it.
yeah.
Ugh.
You got anything else to say before we wrap it up?
I think we covered it.
Cool. If you guys have Netflix, go watch the Cloverfield Paradox. Don't take our word for it. Formulate your own opinion. Don't listen to Rotten Tomatoes on anything. Just fucking don't listen to other reviewers. Don't listen to us. Go watch it for yourself and formulate your own opinion. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Bye.
See ya.